A Different Man is written and directed by Aaron Schimberg and stars Sebastian Stan, Adam Pearson, and Renate Reinsve. And it follows Sebastian Stan as Edward, an aspiring actor with a disfigured face who undergoes a radical medical procedure to drastically transform his appearance. But his new dream face quickly turns into a nightmare as he loses out on the role he was born to play and becomes obsessed with reclaiming what was lost. This is just like The Substance. Another great unintentional double feature this year to go right alongside the lesbian crime double feature of Drive Away Dolls and Love Lies Bleeding. But these two movies have a little more in conversation. When I think about The Substance, one of the biggest reasons why that concept and the movie as a whole works so well is the absolutely brilliant and completely committed lead performance from Demi Moore. And the same can absolutely be said for A Different Man and the career best work that Sebastian Stan is doing here. He is great in this movie. And he has a lot to work with because he's basically playing two different characters, and he does them both pitch perfectly. One is Edward, his true name and his true self. A depressed, heartbroken man with a disfigured face whose every interaction on a day-to-day basis is stressful and induces awkwardness. The other is the identity that Edward creates and assumes for himself after his transformation, a more confident and successful real estate agent and actor named Guy Moranis. Amazing fake movie name. Just incredible stuff from Aaron Schimberg. I laughed the second I heard it. Such a great name. He keeps the personalities distinct, and they're clearly very different, but when you look deeper, it's still also very clear that at their core, this is the same person. This is not a different body, this is not a new guy, this is the same person, just with a slight difference. And Stan plays those differences so well. But what he plays maybe even better is the transition between these two personalities, and what is maybe my favorite scene of the movie, where it sort of just becomes a body horror for a few minutes. You know, the way this medical procedure changes Edward's face is by quite literally making it fall off in clumps. And that leads to this scene where it's time to get rid of the rest of his quote-unquote Edward face, and he quite literally peels it off, revealing Sebastian Stan. And after he does this, he decides to go out and experience, maybe for the first time in his life, what it feels like to look normal, quote-unquote, in public. And one way we see this expressed expertly is through this large group of drunk guys who come into the bar. They're deep into their night, and they see Sebastian Stan, and they immediately sweep him up in their festivities. And Stan immediately plays it perfectly by showing every aspect of pure confusion. You know, why are these guys treating me so nicely? Why do they want me to hang out with them? But taking that confusion and converting it into being sort of relaxed. You know, there's a shot of Stan sitting amongst all the guys at a table, and he looks like he fits right in until you look closer and you see the look in his eyes and the way his mouth is open, and you can tell that he cannot wrap his head around the life experience he's having. And Stan is so good because he brings all that to this one moment while also making it hilarious. And that was something that caught me a bit off guard about this movie, was its sense of humor. I figured from the trailer and the reviews that I had heard that it would at least have some jokes and be a bit funny, but I wasn't expecting one of the movie's main devices to be playing a huge cosmic joke on Edward, which I found extremely interesting. There's one particular sequence in the third act which has a comedic escalation of events that honestly reminded me of The Simpsons in a way that didn't totally work for me in the moment. I will say, thinking about it a bit after seeing it, I like it more, but it still doesn't totally work for me. But that's not my sentiment for most of the humor in Schimberg's movie, because a lot of it works very well. There's lots of great bit parts and one-scene roles, and a lot of great one-liners as well. One in particular about John Wilkes Booth has to be one of my hardest laughs at a movie this year. Really got me good. And that is one of the biggest strengths of this movie and its script, is coding this very sensitive and touchy subject in comedy and making it a lot more palatable and allowing us as the audience to explore the ideas with a bit more comfort, but not in a safety vest kind of way, just in a way that lightens the mood a little bit. And Schimberg's script is truly one of the best aspects of the movie, and that comedy is one of those aspects, and another one is just how meta the movie gets. And that is mainly done through the characters of Ingrid and Oswald, played by Renate Reinsve and Adam Pearson respectively. Starting with Ingrid, she is introduced as Edward's neighbor, who is quite nice to him, reaches out and builds this friendship with him. She mentions she's a playwright, and Edward gives her this very nice typewriter he has, and they have a nice friendship. And after Ingrid is led to believe that Edward is dead, she writes a play about him. And this is the aforementioned role that Edward was born to play, is himself. And he basically goes in and gets cast for this part. And it brings up some other interesting questions through another very meta aspect, which is the character of Oswald, played by Adam Pearson, who has the same facial disfigurement that Edward had before his transformation, and basically serves the movie as this force of nature who is not only sort of a representation of Edward pre-transformation, a guy who looks the same as he did but is approaching life in a totally different way. Edward treated his disfigurement as something that held him down and colored all of his interactions with people, whereas with Oswald, it's just another aspect of his personality. He's confident, he's funny, he is a talented actor, and Adam Pearson plays it so well because he has this vibe to where everything he does messes up Edward's life, but he acts in a way to where you can't quite tell if he knows it or not, but he would never admit it if he was. It's so well done, and Pearson is such a lightning bolt to the movie and kind of a scene stealer. It brings up all these questions of, is the movie punishing Edward just because he wanted to change this thing about himself? Are people who want to change these things about themselves bad? Are they wrong for wanting to change the hand that they are dealt? This movie feels entertaining and constantly interesting while also dealing with these ideas in a very delicate and intelligent way. If I were to mention a couple problems I had with the movie, I think the biggest thing that stands out is some pacing issues. I alluded to a third act escalation of comedic events, and that didn't only not work for me for that reason, it also didn't work for me because of the pacing. And I think the place it found itself in the story was just a bit strange, and it all happened a little quickly. And there's a moment in the second act where there's a bit of a pacing issue as well. It almost made me feel like the movie should have either lost 10 minutes or gained 10 minutes. I can't really elaborate on that, but that's just how I felt. But I mean, yeah, that's kind of the only flaw I can think of. It's a pretty short list because this movie's pretty great. It's, not earth-shattering or anything, but it's just a great movie, really great performances from the three leads. Sebastian Stan in particular is incredible, one of my favorite performances of the year, and Adam Pearson and Renate Reinsve are no slouches either. They're doing great work. A really, really great script from Aaron Schimberg. So much humor and heart and delicacy, all coming together to just make a very coherent and enjoyable experience that informs the viewer while not dragging them down and feeling preachy or finger waggy, as I mentioned before. So yeah, overall, A Different Man, one of my favorite movies of the year. They're rolling it out in a bit of a strange way, but if you can see this movie, please do. It's really great and absolutely worth a watch. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.